Thank you so much for being here.
Isaac, thank you.
I'm sure this was an emotional screening for everyone. There's so much to discuss, and you come to it from a very interesting perspective. I do a lot of Q&As here, and having the son of the subject is kind of an interesting angle in all of it. I want to start with, obviously, just this was put together so beautifully. When you're going to make a movie about Elie Wiesel, and people are applauding. Where do you start? How did it start for you? Obviously, they had to come to you for this, and how did this all start? Tell us a little bit.
So I think the journey, and by the way, thank you so much, Isaac, for hosting us here in the JCC, and Joanna and the incredible JCC team. Really thanked you for doing this. And of course, without the incredible recording there of Ani Mamin, the movie would not be the same. So thank you, Mati, for all you did to bring that. Mati Lazar from Hazamir.
Sound is fantastic in this film. It's really on another level.
I would say that, after my father passed, maybe within the first week, the emails started to hit my inbox of producers who wanted to make Night the movie. And I have to say, of the many decisions we had to navigate about my father's legacy, that one, thank God, was an easy one because my father had left very clear instructions. He never wanted any other creative to get in between him and his reader. Night stood alone, it was a book, and he never wanted anybody to make a film and interpose their own creative vision. So that was very easy to say no to that. But we did feel that a movie about my father's life was appropriate. And, it took a few years, really, to find the right person. And Annette Insdorf introduced us to this incredible film. I'm glad Oren's not here. He always gets very upset when I compare this film to his other babies. But Hiding and Seeking was an amazing film. And when my mom and I saw Hiding and Seeking, we turned to each other and we said, we want Oren Radofsky and Menachem Daum together to make the film. So that's the origin of how we began this process.
And in terms of the research that needed to be done, how to tell Elie Wiesel's story in an hour and 28 minutes, what part did you play in that?
Look, the good news is this is an independent film. So, we felt that this film would get the appropriate hearing if it wasn't, micro-controlled by the family or the legacy. We really wanted an independent filmmaker who we trusted. So we did not get a lot of creative control. I must say it was Oren's decision to largely ground the film in my father's own voice, using the recordings. And thank God there are so many recordings. The 92nd Street Y has such a rich library of my father's recordings. All of those lectures that he gave there, some of this old footage was just tremendous that he was able to dig out of the archives. So I really want to give credit to Oren. That was his creative vision to build the film that way.
And why was it important for people to hear the story now, to hear the story of Elie Wiesel? People have read Night, they know of his legacy, hopefully. But why was it important to you that this movie be made?
I mean, Isaac, have you looked at what's going on outside this building in 2025?
I was hoping you'd say that.
Listen, my father reported and told the story and answered a very basic question. Is there such a thing as evil in the world? And he was able to tell us, yes, there is. It's no longer something that's in dispute. And that was his testimony. But what this film, I think, brings to light is what my father's life was about, which was demonstrating that there is such a thing as good in the world, as people who want to reach out to their neighbor, to understand them better, to make a connection. You look at what my father was teaching in that classroom. What he was teaching, whether it was Kant or Plato or even Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, all of that was the surface. What my father was really teaching was how to comport oneself as a human being. We talk in Judaism about the Torah shebichtav, the Torah that is in writing, and the Torah shebe'al peh, the oral tradition of Torah. so much of my father was in the oral tradition, how he comported himself, how he behaved with other people, how he encouraged people to tell their stories, whether it was a student or his taxi driver or the head of a state. It didn't matter to him. So that, I think, is really important to start to get a glimpse of.
It's amazing thinking about it now. This is not a Holocaust film. This wouldn't go into that genre for me. This is really a story about life, a story about, I mean, it's a very positive story in so many ways, and just so many lessons that come out about living beyond whatever tragedies happened before. That's an interesting approach for Oren to take in terms of the storytelling. The film also serves as a way to remember your mother, who passed away this year, and soon after this film premiered, and gets to really show, I think, capture some of her beauty.
It's the last movie my mother saw before she passed. She got to see the premiere at Lincoln Center when the film was shown at the end of January. That's probably where she caught the virus that probably contributed to the end of her life. There's still stuff going around, so be careful, folks. But she turned to me and to Oren and said, I have one big problem with this film. She said, it made me fall in love with your father all over again.
Beautiful. One of my favorite moments for the film, of course, are those brilliant children in Newark. Mm-hmm. And how do we get this message to the next generation? What are your thoughts there?
How long you got?
We'll open it to questions soon.
We have a lot of work to do. And the way that I think about it is everybody has work to do from where they are in life. And sometimes that's overcoming a family dynamic where maybe you have a divided family. You have those who love Trump and those who hate Trump, and you have to figure out, are you going to make Thanksgiving dinner stick together? That might be your personal project for the fall. There are big institutions. We are in the process of rebooting the Elie Wiesel Foundation. More news to come in the coming weeks. But we are taking a keen interest in human rights issues around the world. Why is it that the biggest human rights organizations on the planet, Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International, who claim to speak for human rights, spend 80% of their time trashing Israel? We got to do something about that. So we all have the ability to make an impact where we are. And I think that's what's beautiful about that classroom, what that teacher, what Paris was doing there. So there's no magic bullet. I think that what I can tell you is there are techniques, there are things you can use to maybe be helpful, but again, it's sort of a how long you got conversation. I'm happy to share more later.
We'll keep it coming all week. The film, I'll remind you all, opens at the IFC Center downtown, so please spread the word about this. I'd love to make you a part of this conversation and have some time for a few questions, so we will pass the microphone around and let you join in.
Mine is not so much a question, but this was so gorgeous. I feel like you've given me and the world an incredible gift. This was gorgeous.
Thank you.
And I am going to jump onto that last question. When you're telling people to go to IFC, maybe tell them to go the whole family, a few different generations, which is one of the things I love about this film, that you get to see. And I think that's part of what this film is really about. It's that from generation to generation, going back to your great-great-grandfather whose grave is there, to your son, and it's a beautiful message to share. So a multi-generational film. We'll take our next question.
Also not a question, but a statement.
It's the JCC.
This might be a Jewish audience. Yeah.
I was doing some renovations in my apartment a few months ago, and I had so many books, chazarai, and I wanted to get rid of all my books. And then I found your father's books, Night, my favorite book, and I couldn't throw any of them away. I threw so many books away, but I have them still in my apartment.
It's kind of you to offer. We actually have quite a few copies. Thank you.
I'm not offering, I'm keeping them. Oh. But I also want to tell you that your dad was my professor at City College in the early 1970s. And I wrote a paper for him, and he gave me an A+. And I still have it at home, so I just wanted to tell you that. He was a great teacher.
I almost don't have the heart to tell you that he was congenitally incapable of giving anything lower than an A-.
Did you feel it was an A-plus paper? That's the really important thing here. We have time for a couple more. I'm going to grab one right here.
Some of the movie describes you living in the shadow of your father. At what moment do you feel in your life, do you feel like Elisha as your own person?
Wow, that's a deep question. And again, how long you got and how much do you charge? My therapist might be out of a job here. Look, for me, there was a moment, I think, that came a little bit later in life when my father stopped being this person who cast a shadow and was sort of a weight on my shoulders, and instead became somebody who really lifted me up. And of course, he was lifting me up the entire time. But, you know, sometimes kids are stupid. What do you understand? So for me, you know, going to a modern Orthodox yeshiva where everybody just saw me as Elie Wiesel's son, I would play around and like pass notes with my friend in class, and the Chumash teacher would be like, "How can it be that Elie Wiesel's son is passing notes in class? The world is ending." You know, this was the sort of thing that would happen on a pretty regular basis because I wasn't such a great student. But I think the moment for me really came when I was about 19 or 20 years old, right around the age my son was now. And I had the experience at that time of meeting my cousin who was in Israel. My cousin Steve Jackson was visiting New York. And all of a sudden, for the first time, there was somebody who was of my DNA, of my family, who was a proud Jew, but a young Jew. I had older parents, and here was a contemporary. Here was somebody I could relate to. And, you know, long story short, but within a year, I was off to Israel doing an army program, experiencing that not only that Judaism wasn't a burden, but that we had all these incredible gifts, our history, our tradition. And that ended up turning into a trip where Steve, my father, and I went to see Get together. Some of those photographs are in the film. And that really was a turning point for me. So.
What would your daddy say if he were here right now, living in these times? Country hurtling toward fascism, and many of my Jewish brethren cheering them on.
And a city heading towards socialism that doesn't like
Socialism.
the Jews. And plenty of people on the Upper West Side cheering him on, by the way.
Exactly. What would your daddy say? We need his wisdom in this moment.
First of all, that's very sweet. I have to tell you, as a matter of principle, I have to adjust the form of the question because I think that there are very few privileges that come with being gone from this world. But one of them is we shouldn't be putting words in their mouths anymore. So this idea of what would he say now, you know what, he's not here, so it's not for us to say, Elie Wiesel would have said, trust me, I don't do that out of respect, I'm his son. There are plenty of people. You can go see marches where people are brandishing my father's quotes in marches against Israel, against the Jewish community. So I don't like to do that, but I can tell you what I think as someone who, you know, Malcolm Gladwell wrote about the 10,000 hour mark. Well, I have 10,000 hours of Elie Wiesel, so I can tell you, you know, what 10,000s of hours have told me about that perspective. And I think my father really put together a life where he refused to retreat from the world and say, we're going to go back into the shtetl, we're only going to be Jews, we're just going to think about our own perspective. But he also refused to put his Jewishness on the side. He refused to say, as I go about in the world, I'm going to let my Jewishness get diluted. I'm going to let my connection to the state of Israel get diluted. He refused that false choice. He didn't like it, and he refused to do it, and he decided that he was going to be a proud Jew, being a good mensch and a great human being, and that's what we all need to do. I think that's the lesson.
I think we're going to take the one more here in the middle, if that's okay.
I have a question about
We're just going to pass the mic, just so everyone can hear.
It's the JCC.
Thank you. He spoke about an image, or was it a dream, about a child with a red coat. And I was wondering, that same image was in Schindler's List. So Was he a consultant with Spielberg, or Spielberg read that from his book and picked that image up?
Gosh, I don't know. I'm not a Schindler's List expert, but I will say that my father had told me that his younger sister, Tzipora, had received a red coat as a birthday present shortly before the deportations.
I think I want to end on this point and actually connect this last statement. I always saw Elie Wiesel as the ultimate witness of for the Holocaust, and with his passing, the way we remember the Holocaust and the lessons, more importantly, the lessons that we can learn from the Holocaust are through films, through books, through films, through the stories that are being told. And it is so important. We here at the JCC, Yom HaShoah, every chance we get, there's luckily an abundance of films relating to the Holocaust and the lessons of the Holocaust still being made, and these stories are still being told, and keeping these stories alive and making sure that we bear witness in a way that's relevant to today is happening through these films. And that's why it's so important for this story to be told. And Elie's story, who he might not have loved the film being made about him, but for the story to get out there is important to keep the story alive.
Isaac, I want to say thank you so much. I want to respond as we close to what you said and said, you opened by saying Oren Rudofsky did not make a Holocaust film. This was not a Holocaust film. I would say that my father's message, and this is going to sound a little crazy, he spoke a lot about the Holocaust. He was obviously foundational in building the U.S. Holocaust Museum, but he did not see the Holocaust as his raison d'etre. For him, the idea was very clear. Be a good Jew, transmit Jewish learning, be a mensch, be somebody who made a positive difference in the world, and think really about the future. So there are amazing Holocaust films. I encourage people to do it, but I want to be very clear. Elie Wiesel, do not think of him in that narrow box. He had much, much bigger and broader ideas, as I think this film shows.
Thank you. Be a mensch, everyone. Have a good night. Thank you for joining us.